You're listening to Redesigning Reality with Dylan Charles and Jeff Anthony.
Howdy, this is Redesigning Reality. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in, listening, subscribing, following, all that good stuff. I'm Dylan Charles with Mr. Jeff Anthony. How you doing today, bud?
I'm doing good.
Cool.
Doing awesome. Enjoying the transitions of life, as it were.
What does that mean? You're getting old, or?
No. I started feeling old yesterday when I was hanging out with some 20-year-olds that own their own businesses and stuff. So getting some work done on my car, listening to all the new rap and hip hop.
Yeah, some dank shit there. A friend of mine posted this meme. It said something like, I'm 40, but I feel like 20 until I hang out with 20-year-olds. Then I feel like 60.
That's hilarious, dude. It's
and
kind of accurate.
He's a jiu-jitsu guy too, man. And so that has it's kind of a double entendre there for us jiu-jitsu guys, because, when we're in practice and we're rolling, it's like, I got to roll with the 20-year-old guys and, I'm twice their age and got to hang with the little guys. I mean, the youngsters, they're pretty ferocious, man.
Right.
Yeah.
I had to find out what's legit. Stuff that's legit, find it out.
Yeah, those cats are lit. But so what are we talking about today? A few minutes ago, you'd mentioned fear porn, which I thought was kind of funny. Cause,
yeah, that's what I call the news. That's what I call the news feed. Fear porn.
Fear porn.
Yeah.
Doomer. They used to call it doomer porn.
Doomer porn?
Yeah.
I call it fear porn because it's all just a fear loop. It just is designed to stress you out, freak you out, get you out of your element and worried about, what you should buy.
It's one of the greatest things that they use to control your minds with all that stuff is the tool or the tactic of lying by omission. So they tell you all this shit and they present it in such a way, and they tell you all these fancy facts and get all these pundits and speakers, but they don't really ever tell you the whole truth, what's really going on. And so it shapes your perception of the world in such a way that, you're basing your decisions and your emotions and all that stuff on false realities, incomplete realities,
Well, I have another term for that. I call it the selective truth. They select which truth is going to keep their sponsors happy and sell a bunch of crap and keep people tuned in to the fear porn. So, by doing that, you never get the full story. But when you do look something up, there's a little ounce of truth in there. So they've selected a little bit of truth to share with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the major news networks, cable networks and stuff, I mean, anybody can go Google search this stuff. We're not dealing with some hidden conspiracy here, but the military's involved in helping them edit and decide which content to produce and talk about. The CIA is involved on so many levels, and so yeah, I mean it's incredibly sophisticated propaganda. But the term fear porn is relevant because that's what it is, man. It's like another form of pornography. It's addicting in the sense that it fires certain synapses and creates certain neurotransmitter releases in your brain that keep you coming back for more. So the point of it all is to keep you in that low vibrational fear state, but not just keep you in there, but to invite you in, and so that you want to kind of keep yourself in there. I used to hang out in the rabbit holes quite a bit, and so I understand the psychology of that. And it's very tempting to be focused on wanting to know what else is going fucking wrong. What else is messed up? What else is wrong? What else is scary?
Well, that's what we were talking about before we got rolling here. Was there's so many people out there that get stuck in that and mired in the sludge of their reality, right? Of the stuff that they're discovering, the curtain that they pulled back, the information download that they're receiving daily. And at some point you got to move on beyond that shit. You have to kind of slice and dice your way through it and pick out the nuggets, because there's some good stuff out there. There's some good information. But how are you going to apply that to your life? How are you going to redesign your reality, right, with this new information that you have?
Man, dropping it always.
But seriously, though, I mean, you have to, at some point, you have to plow forward, right? At some point, you have to. It's just like, for example, doing shamanic practices and doing ceremony. You can speak on this too. I mean, you don't want people coming back to. There's a certain amount of work and investment that has to be done to move through a problem. But then, in 6, 8, 10 months from now, we shouldn't be rehashing the same problem. Then you're stuck, and you're not wanting to progress, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think like the value of the conspiracy theories and the bad news and all that kind of stuff is the value is to help you realize that it's more like to help you realize that the world can be one way or another way or both ways. It can help you realize that there's multiple possibilities, multiple realities in anything that you see. And so when you realize that, it kind of helps to break you free from that thought control paradigm that we've all been pimped into our whole lives. And you're like, okay, well, maybe things aren't what these people are saying they are. But then the flip side is maybe what the other side's telling me isn't what they are. So I find in that just tremendous liberation of freedom of thought, freedom of mind. To be like, okay, cool. Well, maybe I don't fucking know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm free to plot my own course. Maybe I'm free to set my own sails and explore what I want to explore.
Well, that's always been one of my one of my favorite lines is you don't know what you don't know, and that's it's so that says so much by saying so little, but it's absolutely true. Every time that you're introduced to more information, you have a realization of how much you're unaware of, and there's in some ways, ignorance is bliss. As a child growing up, it's nice to believe that you live in a country that cares about everybody and is all here to protect you and make you feel good and safe and all these kind of things. And then, you wake up one day and you're 43 years old like me, and, 9 police officers in Baltimore have been arrested and indicted on planting drugs and freaking stealing money and all kinds of crazy crap. And they're not protecting anybody. They're actually putting people in harm's way and, running people down with their car and then getting out and chasing the ones who run. Like, I'm like, dude, try to run me down in your car. I'm going to run too. Like, seriously, that's not a way to pursue suspects or whatever. But, there's a balance there though. Like, you got to turn the fear porn off and just be in your reality, be in your life and choose the reality. Like you were saying, like you can dive so deep down some of these rabbit holes, man, and there's no bottom. There is no bottom. You can always dig deeper and find even more disgusting, disgraceful activity being done by humans, or you can choose to look at the positive side and find people that are doing awesome things for humanity, and but then you have to have that balance of the light and the dark, like Buddhists and the Tibetan monks, they talk about that. You're not really self-actualized until you balance your shadow side with the light side, and it can't be all light and it can't be all dark.
No, life is certainly not always all light, but I didn't realize how good things can get until I had really taken the time to ponder how bad things are. You
had to fuck your life up a little bit to like enjoy the good stuff.
Yeah, sort of. Not even just fuck it up. Of course, that happened too. But like just get really heavy into the conspiracy. Conspiracy is such a loaded term, and it's not even fair to say because like we know the news lies by omission. So when I say conspiracy, that's just a word that I'm using to explain that there's truths that aren't being told in the media. So when you dive into the the information, like take 9/11 for example. Whatever you think happened on September 11th. I mean, the 9/11 Commission produced a report, and in that report is a selected body of information that those people chose to admit in that report. And like there's a lot of information that could have gone in there that did not go in there. So
yeah. And when I look back and I think about that stuff, I think about it's shitty, dude. A lot of awesome people died that day. But again, what did people do? We've talked about the resiliency before of humans and how people are innately want to help, right? And it's when we've been pushed to the most extreme and challenged the most that we are the most resilient, right? And so I think about all the awesome people that came to the aid of others and, tried to make something good out of that, and all the foundations and things that have been established, and how people still, they remember fondly the memories of the people that they don't have anymore. So anyway, there's always a place to go with your reality, just where do you choose to focus? Because energy flows where your attention goes. And it's absolutely true. I've seen it happen in my life, and I've witnessed it happen in everybody's. Like if you have children, man, they're a great example of that. They wake up gnarly in the morning, they go to school, and they come home that afternoon, man, just a grumpy mess, and they're like, I had a bad day, and I got in an argument with my friends, and my teacher wasn't happy with me, and blah blah blah, and it all started, with the way they rolled out of bed in the morning. So, and vice versa, when they're in a great mood, they have great days, and life is kind of funny like that.
It's very paradoxical at times. I was thinking about that. I was writing an article about this idea of personal awakening, but the paradoxes that exist in that. Like, for example, like healing, it hurts. Why does it hurt? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not always a pleasant experience. A lot of people think they want to be healed or delivered from a situation, and man, it's work, man. It's tough, and all the truths that will be exposed on the journey some of them you're not ready to hear, and you don't want to hear, because they require your input and your change, and your own personal acceptance of responsibility.
Yeah, I don't know. In my quest to grow and change, I've had to come to terms with the fact that the rabbit hole is always going to be there. It's always going to get deeper, and I've seen how it's actually become an art form now to like create furrows between the rabbit holes, and like to guide people and steer them from one rabbit hole to another, and man, I just keep coming back to this idea that all of that exists as a wake up call, and what it actually means when whatever they say, when the rubber meets the road. What that all actually means is that as individuals, as people, like you may not have very much time here on this planet, and in this physical manifestation, right? And so all of these things are wake up calls. First, it's got to scare the shit out of you, because it's trying to jolt you out of your habits, your programs, your patterns of doing things, your indoctrination, your all that stuff. Wake up, look at all this stuff. So oftentimes it's the scary stuff, like when people are sleeping at night, they don't usually jump out of their sleep in the middle of the night and go, oh. They don't usually do that when they're having a nice dream, when they're having a dream about hanging out with a beautiful girl or whatever it may be, but they jump up and freak out, when something really scary happens.
True. I mean, that's a great analogy for the way we are in our waking life too. Everybody is so afraid of cancer and heart disease and strokes and Alzheimer's and all these things, and all depending on your perspective and how you look at things, man. These things are there to remind you to live a healthy life, to monitor your diet, to put good things into your body, to not, cook out of aluminum pots and pans, or, all these things they're ways that people get jolted into making life changes. My dad had a heart attack, and for a long time he was like he quit smoking. He'd smoked for like 30 something years, and he started eating better, and he lost weight, and he got in better shape, and then time caught up to him again, and he got comfortable.
Yeah, fuck, what was I just gonna say there, Jeff? I had a great awesome thought. I forgot what it was though, man, because I spaced out.
We were talking about
when you started talking about the heart attack. I went back to I was like, oh, that's right, my brother had a heart attack. No, he didn't. He just overdosed on pot.
No, it's talking about how when something physically happens to you, it kind of spurs you to make a change. dietary.
You were talking about how everybody was trapped in like these different like fear paradigms, whether it's the health paradigm, the cancer box that you get trapped in, or the Alzheimer's, the worrying about this or worrying about that, and it just made me think like to zoom out a little bit. People get caught in thought. Like they get caught in patterns of thought, cycles of thought, regurgitated thoughts, thought loops, thought worms, little like thought battles that go on inside in their head. When reality, like if you understand and you like dial in and tune and feel your own consciousness, you can move up above thought. You can realize that, I'm the conscious being having these thoughts, and then above that is like the level of mind, like the mental universe or whatever. So, like that's why I like the Bwiti Iboga tradition so much. That talks about how to control the mind, how to work on the mind, how to like recognize what thoughts are going on in your head, and then what to do with those thoughts, and how to replace negative thoughts, or let's say thoughts that aren't serving you well, with positive thoughts. How to build your identity, rebuild, I guess, your identity using thoughts that actually can serve you well. So a lot of times, like for me back in the day, it was the fear porn, the doomer porn, all of that kind of stuff was so needed for me to break out of the mainstream viewpoint, because there's none of this stuff we're talking about in the mainstream viewpoint. And so breaking out of that, jolting me out of my sleep and waking up ultimately led me down to realize that there's so much more going on with the mind and consciousness and as, evolving human beings, right?
Right. And then once you do enough of the work, you start putting in time and shamanic meditation and things like that, you start to realize that you can observe the thoughts too, right? Like it's really interesting being the observer of thoughts, and where you finally reach that point where you're disconnected from believing that you're the one thinking these things to realizing that this is just a vehicle that you're in the seat of, and observing the thoughts that your mind goes to based on what it is exposed to, right? And so then it becomes right, or exposed to, right. And you begin to realize that you can start exposing yourself to different ways of thinking and different ways of being, and then you will become that, because language is a really funny thing that I've always been fascinated by. Like, I've always thought this thought, like, we're human beings, right? So if you want to find a different way of being, then expose yourself to a different way of being. We're not human doings, right? But so many people are doing all these activities to try to become this thing, but they never have a full realization or manifestation of what they could potentially be, as far as a observer, a teacher, a experiencer, all of these things at the same time. So many people are put themselves in the mold of I'm a fill in the blank here, and they get locked into that thing. And same thing we're talking about. People get locked into the fear porn and to the rabbit hole of doom and all the things that to be scared of, and instead of taking some of that information and using it as an avenue and an outlet for people to encourage them and influence them to live in a more positive way, and to how they can change the system that they're a part of, because we're all a part of it,
like the recognition that you're the observer of your thoughts is pretty empowering. To me, like a step beyond that is the recognition that you're the thinker of the thoughts. Not only are you able to observe what thoughts are, floating in your head. Like imagine a river with leaves falling. It's the old Zen thing. You imagine yourself sitting in a river with leaves falling. Those are your thoughts. When they hit the water, you watch them move downstream, watch them go. But not only that, but you're the thinker of the thought. You're the tree with the leaves, right? So in that, I mean, really, what is self-identity? If you can think your own thoughts. I mean, like you said, so many people say, oh, I am this and that. I'm an accountant, or, I'm overweight, or I'm lazy, or I'm, whatever, fill in the blank. But it's just as easy. It's just as easy. It's just, like you said, it's language. It's just language that takes place in your head. It's just as easy to plug in a different adjective, different noun in that blank space. I am.
Well, and
awesome.
the Bible talks about it's funny that you landed on this I am, because the Bible talks about the I am statements, right? And one of the most famous quotes from the Bible is I am that I am, right? Or when people ask, God, what God is, he is the I am. And the power behind that, the part that I've always extracted from that is be careful what you label yourself as, right? Be careful when you say I am and then you inject something negative, because you will become the things that you feed your mind, right? The mind is super powerful, and you are the thinker, and you're also the creator, right? And sometimes we've talked about this in the spiritual warfare, you have to watch the thoughts that are being pushed, because people will push thoughts, and let's just say other beings will push a thought into your head as well. Right. And it's important to address those thoughts when they come up, and even refute them and say, this is not my thought form. And it's amazing how that thing will dissipate, and the power that you really truly have. I mean, you and I, in one of our early episodes, you were talking about how you were describing a lemon, remember?
Oh yeah.
To your kids in this meditation. And I closed my eyes and was doing it with you, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can smell, and my mouth is getting all tangy and
saliva glands fire off.
Yeah, it's so cool. And that's nothing more. I mean, that's pure creation.
I don't know why when you were talking, it just made me think of my experiences in corporate America, working office jobs and crap, trying to figure out way back in the day what I wanted to do with my life and where it was all going, and taking jobs here and there. And then when I did have a career working in video games and being in the office environment, and I just it's such a rich environment for people to gossip and infight and scheme and work and everything. And I wonder how much, it's almost like a which came first, the chicken or the egg scenario, how much impact that has on our culture, because you put so many people in these ultra competitive environments. And there's power plays going on every day between everybody. And so gossip serves as a form of, power and control and manipulation. And there's so much of that going on. I just remember so many people playing that game in corporate America, man. And it's so toxic.
Sadly, people play that game in America, in Russia, in Nigeria, in Costa Rica, dude. People play that game everywhere you go, and
I guess I'm a little bit removed from it just because of the situation, the life I've created for myself. But yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah, and you have to. I mean, that's the choice you have to make, right? Am I going to care? Some of the greatest thoughts that I've ever entertained are, some of the philosophies of, it doesn't matter. It's none of your business what other people think of you, right? If you are true to yourself and you do and try to be a personal beacon for others and hold yourself to a standard, it shouldn't matter what other people think, because you should know who you are in your heart, right? And but man, I've seen a lot of that too. There's so many people lost in today's world that they see some joker on YouTube or some politician on TV, and they're caught doing nefarious things, and these were people that they looked up to, right? Athletes, politicians, actors, actresses. I mean, all this stuff that's going with the Me Too and all that stuff. There's a lot of those people that I personally liked as actors and stuff. You're disappointed. You're like, oh man, come on, dude. What are you doing, man? That's not cool. So, and it's really funny, because here we are. We're just regular. We're not regular Joes. We're regular Jeff and Dylans. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
But we have this high standard that we hold ourselves to, and sometimes it can be disheartening to see people that have achieved so much as far as wealth or celebrity or fame or whatever type of success, and you find out that they are, deceitful, nefarious,
Child molesters.
Yeah, let's just say it. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Boy rippers,
sex offenders, and rapists, even. And it's like, dude, that's the most vile thing you could do. You're destroying people's lives, and their psyches, and it's putrid. It is. It's disgusting.
It's terrible. It's fucking horrible, Jeff. No good. No bueno.
No bueno.
It's no bueno,
But, at the same time, there are, and that's what I think is so cool about what we're doing here and what other people like us are doing. And that's what's so neat about the fact that all these things are dying. Like now, Facebook is dying. They've done so much damage to themselves. All these people are backing out of Facebook and shutting down their accounts because they realize the same thing that you and I talked about, right? We talked about Facebook because of doing this show together. We were talking about how, for a while, Facebook was this awesome thing. You could share what you're doing with your friends and everybody would see it. And now we have this show. We want to share it with our friends. But every time we try to tell our friends about it, Facebook's hitting us up for, $1 a like so that our friends can see what we're doing, And I'm like, I get it if you want me to pay so that all these people that don't know me can see my show, but you want me to pay so that the people who do know me can see my show? Come on, man. And anyway, it's funny because the evolution of these things is going to keep progressing and changing so quickly, though. When you think about like the alphabet soup networks of ABC, CBS, all that, CNN, it's taken them a long time to finally get to where they're crumbling because society was so stagnant for so long. And now, I mean, how old is Facebook? Like 10 years old, and it's already it's crumbling, dude. But there'll be somebody else that realizes, hey, Facebook was doing something good in the beginning, but then they had this vision of eternal growth, which is unsustainable. Like, can't you just be happy with reaching a certain level? It doesn't always have to be growing, Can
you be happy with 2 billion subscribers? Is that not enough?
Well, that's what happens when companies go public, right? And they're trying to appease their shareholders. The shareholders always want more. They always want a bigger profit. So, but they can't be happy with a sustained profit of whatever ridiculous number their stock is valued at or whatever. If you want more, buy more. Instead of expecting them to screw the people or whatever.
What kind of what kind of growth, eternal growth, is sustainable? I'm realizing, even at this stage of my life, almost 42 years old, I'm realizing that personal growth, eternal personal growth, is sustainable. It's fascinating.
Absolutely,
yeah,
and it should be.
It's the real
that's
deal.
What we are. Well, you know this well. You know all about the expanding Earth theory, that Earth is always expanding and growing, and it's because it's a living organism, right? Like that's us. We're living organisms, and we talked about in our last episode our grandparents all recently passing away and stuff, and it was because, yeah, man, they'd reached that limit. They weren't growing and expanding anymore, and they were ready for the next phase. And that's what happens to us. When you become stagnant and you stop growing, life kind of peters out on you.
Yeah, I'm going through some. For anybody listening out there, if you go back a couple of months in our catalog of shows here, which is not that deep yet, you'll catch me on some episodes talking about how I was going through some challenges and stuff. And the way that I've approached those is to internalize them, like to look for reflections of these problems inside myself. And I've found some pretty fucking revealing things, man, to be honest with you. I actually had some moments last night where I was meditating and I just, a few things hit me like sacks of bricks, and so what I'm finding is that much to my surprise, I have a lot of personal growth to go through right now, and it's happening, and man, it's fucking exciting, dude. I'm so excited right now. I can't even tell you, man. There's so many cool things going on. Last night I was sitting there meditating, man. I've got some minor shoulder injuries I'm trying to work out, and a lot of that's just from getting used to doing jiu-jitsu and stuff and changing up the things I've been doing with my body. But so late last night I was working on those, doing some stretches and breathing and stuff, working through it and thinking about some things, some ideas I'd taken in recently, and was asking myself the question about self-integrity. What does that mean to you, Jeff? Self-integrity.
Well, self-integrity. Well, I was in the Navy, right? So integrity, they talk about the ship's integrity, right? And a ship's integrity is its ability to hold itself together. It's its ability to keep the water out, right? And if you think about this sea of fear porn that we're sailing through,
right,
and that you are the vessel that's sailing those seas, you're the integral part that you have to be able to do is hold yourself together and keep these waters, these stressful times, these wayward, not become the wayward ship lost in the ocean of crap. And so that's what I think of as self-integrity. And the only way to do that, man, the majority of what Navy dudes do is maintenance, right? You maintain your vessel and you chip away the rust and you repaint it. And so it's a constant, the vessel stays the same size. Yeah, it's not a constant expansion, but it is constant maintenance and it's constant attention on the things that are the most important.
Right.
And the most important thing on a Navy ship is the firefighters. And I was a firefighter in the Navy. And because, man, if a fire breaks out on your ship, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run. You got to put that thing out or you die. So there's a lot of great lessons and metaphors that I've learned through life from the experiences that I've had. But that's integrity to me, man. Put out the fires in your own life.
Nice.
Keep your vessel in ship shape, and
do the maintenance.
And do the maintenance, man, and sell the seas. And by maintenance, I know you know what I mean. It's the meditation. It's the
reflection,
eating the proper foods. It's taking
introspection.
Absolutely.
The questions that you ask yourself, the answers that you dig up.
And not being afraid to go dive in the bilge and find the mucky, murky, man, we got a little bit of a issue in here. We need to, turn the bilge pumps on and get this nasty fluid out of this area and do some maintenance over here. So, and we're all like that. We just, it becomes easy to become complacent, and there's a funny term in the military. It's called gun decking. That's where you just kind of skip over the bad parts and try to act like things aren't happening. But eventually somebody finds out that you were doing that and you get in lots of trouble.
Right.
So, and that's a great example for our lives. So for me, that's integrity. It's not that I'm the most honest person. It's not that because I've lied and I've done things and that many people would not approve of. But I've also gone back and examined those areas and I'm not afraid to admit the things that I've done wrong, which to me is integrity.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, so I'm doing some of that maintenance these days. I'm trying to basically suss out and get to the root of the roadblocks or the illusions that I'm perceiving as roadblocks in my life. So last night I was deep into meditating, going really taking my mind really deep inside of my body and really thinking about things and pondering this question of self-integrity and asking myself, where is my self-integrity at? Now, as a disclaimer, I'm pretty badass, all right? I'm awesome, but like Jeff just said a second ago, man, there's always something in the bilge pump there that's collecting and brewing. So I'm diving into this stuff, man. I'm sussing it all out, and all of a sudden, man, and people out there have had these too, man. If you're paying it all attention to your life, you have these revelatory moments where you're like, aha, I understand something new about myself, and now that I understand this, life's never going to be the same. And so I was thinking about this idea of self-integrity, man, and really diving deep. And what I realized last night, man, what I realized is that I'm a very committed person. I've been married for almost 21 years now, very committed to my family, very committed to work, very committed to all these things. But it just hit me that I needed to examine my commitment to my level of commitment to the things I commit to for myself, self-commitment, right? And so when I started doing this, I started making a list okay, I had challenged myself 5 years ago to do this, meditation course or whatever. Did I finish it? No. oh, okay, I had challenged myself just last week to accomplish these work goals. Did I finish them? No. And then it snowballed, man, like a fucking like a snowball down a cliff, man. I was like, oh boy, here we go, man. It just came flowing right out, man. And next thing you know, I'm in the second column of the page, and I'm just like, oh God, there's this. Oh God, there's this. Okay. Now, keep in mind, I'm awesome and badass, so it's it's navigable, right? But at the same time, I'm looking at this, and it took me a while to meditate on it and suss it out. But I finally came to the conclusion that, you know, in regards to my own self-integrity, I have a high level of commitment to the things I promise to other people.
Right.
But the level of commitment I have to the things I promise to myself, to the things that I tell myself I'm going to do, it's not what it needs to be in order to get to where I'm going in life. You know, in order to create the life that I'm creating for myself and my wife and my children. You know.
You know what I like about what you just said, and I don't even know if you heard yourself say this. You said it's something that I have to do to commit to where I'm going in my life and what I'm doing, instead of saying where I want to go in my life. Okay. So already you're using the proper languaging to get yourself to the place that you want to go, because yes. You said, I'm using these things to get to where I want to go in life instead of where I want to go. So
where I'm going is what I said. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, language is a very important thing. And that's one of the things that I realize when I hear how and assess how I talk to my children, right? How do I want to encourage but reprimand at the same time, right? And you don't want to tell your children all the negative things that will happen to them if they don't do these things. You want to encourage them by showing them the awesome things that will happen when they correct their behavior that's not going in the right direction currently. So, it's really interesting language, but I was going to say, as I use my children as an example, I had the same realization this year, actually, after moving back to the States from Costa Rica, and realizing that I was dealing with some depression and dealing with some sadness, obviously, after 10 years of leaving your home you built and your friends behind, that, you know, coming to the realization that I was starting to live my life more for my children than for myself. And was my life still going in the direction that I wanted it to go? Or was I veering off the path that I wanted to take in order to just provide and give my children the experience that I felt like they deserved? So this year for me has been more about finding that balance and realizing that I could still do all these things and be an awesome dad and do a podcast and sell a bunch of books and counsel other people and do the things that bring joy to my life, and not just, you know, be the unpaid Uber driver and grocery getter and dinner provider and short order cook. And you know what I'm saying? Like, finding a balance again, you know, and realizing that, my life has a value beyond just being a parent or a dad.
Yeah. I mean, life is, well, a good life is a life of relationships with people, you know, and not everybody's married out there. Not everybody has kids and stuff, but you know, the commitments that you make to people and the relationships that you make, you know, they really can make life good, or even kind of, you know, make it bad, to be honest. And, you know, my wife and I figured out a number of years back that unless I'm happy, like unless I'm doing the things that I need to be doing for myself, then, you know, that stagnant energy, that lack of flow in my own personal life ends up manifesting in, you know, behavior around the family or whatever, you know, my commitment to them, you know. And so that's why like plant medicines were a huge part of that for me. You know, I work my ass off with the family all the time, but when it's time for me to go to the jungle and drink brew, I just go. And what's cool about that is like plant medicines for me have always been a messenger of they always tell me the same thing. They always tell me that I'm very lucky to have such good relationships in my life. I'm very lucky to have love and happiness and so many people that bring my life joy. And in exchange for that, it's my responsibility to treat them, you know, with proper respect, to you know, provide and care for them the absolute best that I can. And so it's this weird kind of counterbalance where taking care of myself ends up helping me take care of other people, you know, to a much higher level.
Oh yeah, self-care is like another topic that I think we've talked about before, but it's something that's easily ignored, especially when you get caught up in the cycles of being a parent and having children or other responsibilities. For some people, it's their job, right? Like there's a lot of people that are just super career oriented and super involved in their work, and they don't take the time to care for their personal needs because they're so worried about appeasing the wants and desires of their boss or their shareholders or whatever the thing is. So probably a great a great example of people that have to do ultimate self-care in order to keep their jobs as professional athletes, right? Like those are the guys that are, you want to talk about like getting the massage, hitting the sauna, the jacuzzi, taking all the, the vitamins and supplements and stuff to keep their body running at an optimal condition so that they can keep their job. And man, I learned a lot through sports, and we were talking about that the other day about, the emphasis of like team and what it's like to be on a team and have other people depending on you. And then, and the responsibility that it puts on you as far as taking care of yourself and being an integral part of that. And so anybody who's ever played a sport, think about that and think about what you're doing in your daily life. Yeah, you're not a wide receiver or freaking basketball player anymore, but are you taking the same consideration for your body now that you're sitting at a desk? Do you give yourself the same kind of optimal treatment that you would need in order to be the optimal parent or the optimal desk jockey or whatever it is you're out there doing,
Yeah, I mean, like it goes back to that idea of maintenance, right? I was doing all this maintenance last night, working myself into that deep mental, like what beta state consciousness, right? To where, you're basically like half dreaming. And it occurred to me that it's important that I keep commitments to myself, but perhaps maybe more important than that, it's important that I more consciously choose what I commit myself to for myself. Right. And so I noticed this pattern, this cycle of being like, oh, that's something I want to do. I'm going to do that, and then adding something else to my list, adding something else to my list, adding something else to my list. And like I said, it finally all came to a head, like years and years of things. Once again, I'm badass, so it's not a big deal. But years and years of stuff came snowballing at me, and I was like, holy crap, there's all these things on my list. And instead of being like freaked out that I hadn't gotten all this stuff done, I was like, hey, wait a minute. For the first time ever, I see clearly that it's all in front of me. And really, it's my responsibility to choose more carefully, more consciously of like what I'm actually doing today, what I'm doing over the next week, what I'm doing over the next year, And so in that, man, I felt like just tremendous liberation again, just like this, like, oh, I feel free. Like I understand that there's been a struggle inside of me for years, going on for years and years and years, and those kind of things, whether it be like childhood trauma or relationship stuff, like when something is internal you, that like when there's that struggle between two parts of yourself, it sucks energy. It takes energy from other things, but it also depletes like just natural life energy. I was thinking about it in the context of politics. How much energy does the United States have to give to itself and give to the world? Well, we'll never know because the whole system is set up around this idea of political infighting, the Democrats versus the Republicans, blah, 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 whatever, and there's so much of an energy suck, waste of energy and resources, an internal struggle going on that will never, like the nation will never achieve its highest possible potential because it's tied down. It's done, man. Like it's so much of a waste. So that kind of blew my mind last night, man, to be honest.
Well, my comment to you on that too is part of the reason that you realize that let me rephrase it. Once you realize that all these things are in front of you, right? So you have this list, this freaking double column list of things that you haven't finished or things that you've wanted to do or things that you
wanted to be.
would like to be or would like to do, right?
Would have liked, yeah.
Right. And so now what, as a observer of your life and knowing you well as a friend, I would encourage you to look at and just start lining off the things that you realize I don't want to, I've gotten so far down here now, I don't want to do this anymore.
Exactly.
This isn't going to take me, this isn't getting me any closer to my end goal, right? This isn't going to take me down the path that I wanted to explore anymore. And maybe forgive yourself or realize that maybe some part of you had the knowledge or the wisdom to know, hey, you started this thing, but this isn't the right thing right now. And so we're going to go get distracted or what seems to be a fork in the road at the time, and we're going to go down that for a while, and that thing led you to some other thing that you're now doing, like this podcast with me.
I saw I saw like this little BMW sports car the other day. It was outfitted with a trailer hitch, and it was lugging this big ass like camper trailer up a hill.
That's hilarious.
Kind of a good metaphor, right? Cut the trailer loose. Let the sports car go, man.
Yeah, let a sports car be a sports car. And if you want to go camping, get a truck.
Get a tent, a truck. Oh, my God. Camping in America is a whole other thing. Let's not go down that path, but
no, please don't drag me down your camping hole.
People drop some money on it's a high dollar industry now, man. Anyways, but back to this idea of like personal transformation. I think like people go through phases like where they don't know what the hell's going on. They're totally unconscious of what they're doing, why they're doing. They have no idea why they're feeling the way they do. No idea where the anger and the frustration and the like the depression and all that stuff comes from. Then you kind of snap out of that, and if you do, and then you move up through the sort of the levels of consciousness. And now I'm finding myself at that point where it's time to like let go of all the bullshit, man. Let go of all the beliefs, let go of all the stories, and I'm finding that, and I relate a lot of this to business because of what I do, but it's amazing when you really sit down, man, just get a piece of paper and a pencil. When you really sit down and like we were talking about earlier, describe yourself to yourself. I am blank. I am blank. And let's say, I am a fisherman. Well, what's the story behind that? Why did you write, why are you a fisherman? What's the story you told yourself? Is it because you fell in love with, I fell in love with fishing when I was a kid? Or maybe you're not a fisherman and you refuse to go fishing. Maybe you had an experience where, your dad caught a fish when you were a kid and he made you touch the slime and you grossed you out. You know what I'm saying? What stories is it that you're telling yourself that create the identity that you believe is you when it's not? And so, man, it gets deep, man. Lots of layers in that onion when you start.
Well, it gets even deeper, dude, because as you're saying all that, it brings me back to the whole analogy a minute ago of the athlete, right? And how the athletes are trying to keep their physical body in the optimal condition, right? Well, when professional teams are looking at athletes that they want to draft for their team, right, out of college, there's this thing that they talk about all the time. They call it the intangibles, right? So what are their intangibles? Meaning, what's their personality like? Do they work well with others? Are they a leader? Are they honest? Are they reliable? Are they dependable? So I would encourage anyone listening to this show, don't lock yourself down in the physical attributes of the physical world. Like when you're writing down, I am lovable, right? I am compassionate. I am, considerate. I am open. These are all things that I think are the intangibles. That's why I brought up the analogy of the athlete again, because to me, man, that stuff is so much more important. No job that I've ever held has been as important as my capacity to love my children, right? And no job gave a shit about how much I could love. And that's something that I'm passionate about, and that's something that matters to me. And it's something that cannot be measured. Love is one of those funny things that I would say we don't even really have a solid definition for. And those are the intangible things that matter more than I'm an accountant or I am timely and I am dependable.
Dependable's good, though, especially if it's in regards to yourself. because
True.
At the end of the day, man, like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, man. You're the one that's got to figure it out. You're the one that's got to get through whatever challenges you're facing. You're the one that's got to work it out, and we can all wear the victim hats. We can all seek assistance and stuff, man. And there's a difference between, seeking help and seeking guidance, so nothing more effective though than a pen and a paper and a willingness to face your own delusions,
Right. The truth is, the truth will set you free, as they say. And, that's another one of those things that people do though, man. People, so I have a 19-year-old. He's a little bit delusional. He'll convince himself that he's studied really hard for things, or that he has or hasn't done certain things that you're like, dude, come on, bro. Like, you're not convincing me. I've been to college. I've got degrees. I've done these things, and I'm just telling you, dude, don't be delusional, right? Like, if things don't work out the way you thought they were going to, be able to be honest with yourself and realize that maybe you could have put in a little bit better effort. So I love my son, and I know he's figuring it out. But those right there, man, is another great teacher and another great opportunity to, instead of judging him, to realize, hey, man, make sure that you're observing yourself as well. Make sure that you're being honest with your effort in things and your abilities to kind of change and accept the things that are going on in life. And if things aren't going in the direction that you would like them to go, to be malleable and to be a change maker in your own life.
Yeah, I had right before we got on this doing this podcast, a friend of mine sent me a message, and he's like, dude, I got to talk to you, man. I need your help. And he's a good old friend of mine, my old kung fu instructor and teacher, I guess. And he recently got married to a woman who has like an 18-year-old kid, so that kid's living with him for right now. But he's moving out in a couple of days. So my friend sends me this note, and he's like, dude, he's moving out in a couple of days, but the last few days he won't do the fucking dishes, man. I can't stand it. It's driving me crazy. Here's a note I wrote to him. It's all mean. It's all just, nasty, mean, you're disrespecting me and all this kind of stuff. And,
right.
And I'm like, I'm thinking here, I'm like, oh man, you haven't had kids in your house that long. But dishes are, it's like the eternal struggle, right? Getting your kid to do dishes and fold laundry, right? But beyond that, man, I was like, this is a friend of mine. He's awesome, man. He and I were like activists back in the like political activists, back 10 plus years ago, working for like the Ron Paul campaign and doing like libertarian activism and trying to wake people up, like, basically like mired in the fear porn and trying to wake people up, like, out of their dream state. And so very passionate, powerful dude. And he's like, oh, it's just driving me mad. It's just driving me mad. And I'm like, well, what's the lesson for you in here, And,
right.
What's the opportunity for you to learn? And he's like, oh, I don't want to admit it, but, I guess it really has to do with me, like, not getting so worked up, like I just have no tolerance for other people's bullshit is the way that he put it. So, I said, well, like I've known you for a long time, and you've never had tolerance for, what is that, OPBS, and you've never had tolerance for it. So the fact that there's a person in your life now, all of a sudden living in your house, that's giving it to you right in your face. I mean, sounds to me like you finally have a really solid chance to confront this head on, man. Like,
so why don't you go wash the dishes and marinate on that for a while?
That's kind of what I told him, man. That's kind of what I told him. I was like, well, your choices are this, man. Your choices are try to control him through fear.
Never works.
Try to tell him, how shitty he is, or the shitty things are going to happen if he doesn't, start being a responsible person, or, the shitty things is, the shitty ways he's making his mom feel, or this and that for being disrespectful, this and that, or whatever, and just trying to make him feel shitty enough. And funny thing is, I had a conversation, just a week ago with my 13-year-old and my 10-year-old about the dishes, right? They wouldn't do the dishes, and the old me, the way old me, would have gotten super mad, and I just kind of sat observing, and I was like, all right, dudes, sit down. I was like, yeah. I've asked you to do the dishes now 20-something times. So here's my choices. I can get mad. Y'all know what I'm like when I'm mad, right? They're like, oh, yeah. Well, do you want to be mad? No. I'm like, well, why not? How does it make you feel? And they're like, well, it makes us feel shitty, basically. Like, you feel disrespected, right? Okay, cool. Well, I'm not going to treat you that way. Let's just do the dishes together, man, get them done. Let's just work together. And we work together, and it's all a happy ending. But it's a lesson I've already learned because I've had kids for a long time. But I saw in my friend, it was just like a great opportunity. I'm like, man, you've always had problems with being able to handle OPBS. So how cool of the universe to throw it like not only in your face, but in your face, in your house, in your face.
Right. So that's the whole thing.
Now what are you going to do?
That's the whole thing that I've mentioned before. Teachers are everything and everyone. They're all around us, right? It's just, are we ready to accept the lesson? And, it's the same deal here. My son he'll do the dishes, and he's actually really good about that, but he doesn't do the whole job, as I like to call it. Like, he doesn't wipe down the counters or all of that kind of thing, But then, you know what I do, dude? I go behind him and I do that part. And I realize that I'm thankful that I didn't have to do all of it, right? Like, I didn't wash all the dishes. I didn't load the dishwasher. I didn't unload it. I am, I'm doing the, what would you call that? I'm doing the detail work, right? I'm doing the finish up, right? And, but he's doing the heavy lifting kind of thing. So, and it was another thing. That was a thing for me, just like what you're saying about your friend. It was a thing where I was going round and round with him about doing the whole job, like, you got to learn how to finish. And he's like, what do you mean I am finished? All the dishes are in the dishwasher, And so, I was just like, I'm tired of having this argument. So I'm just going to decide that I'll be the wipe down guy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the wipe down guy in my house. Bless their little hearts. For Bless their clean up, man.
I almost feel like they don't even see it. Like, oh, what do you mean there's cheese and grape nuts on the counter? I can't even see that.
I was a kid. You can't see it.
You can't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You can't see all the crap in your room. You can't see the dishes in your own room. It's like, as a kid,
obviously, my
invisible.
kids can't see their clothes on the floor in the bathroom.
You can't see that. You can't. It's like their young developing cerebral cortexes just haven't written that stuff into their reality yet.
No, it's a built-in bath mat that soaks up the water when they get out of the shower. It's great.
No. Man, it's so funny, man. We talked about like different names for the show and stuff. We went through a couple other ones, and like we ended up calling it Redesigning Reality after a couple of changes. And for a while, I was kind of like, it's kind of a generic name, this and that. But man, I don't know, man. Everything I do seems to be a reflection of who I am, of course. And man, as soon as we started this podcast, all kind of different things started changing. And now I'm realizing, I have so much control over the reality that I create myself, much more than I've realized in the past. I mean, there's a whole level of integration going on here. And so I was thinking how cool of a name it was, Redesigning Reality, because it's what we do, man.
Are you trying to tell me that you are redesigning your reality?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Good.
We need to put that on a shirt. Are you redesigning your reality, with a picture of Jeff with his freaking goatee?
Yeah, like doing the stroke thing,
like the stink eye.
Yeah. Anyway, it's very relevant to the show, and it always finds its way in the show because it's the best name ever, and
ever.
You have to be a couple of wet behind the ears punks to come up with an awesome name like that, and you have to be able to believe that you can redesign your reality. And no, dude, seriously though, this whole thing has been a great experience, and it's really awesome to have a weekly reminder of why we're doing all this stuff, that we're constantly trying to grow, to discuss these kinds of topics, to discuss things that we're passionate about,
right,
and to try to do the thing like we were talking about earlier before we started recording. The neatest part of this is we're at that point that we want to try to help the people that are where we were, where we are now, but also where we were 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, that are just starting to redesign their reality. I don't know, that are just starting to jump off and dive into the rabbit hole and are, they're just now starting to realize that the fear porn is like they've had their limit. By the way, the name of the show is Fear Porn, right? Like, come on, can we agree on that?
I guess I don't know. we haven't mastered the clickbait titling yet. Yeah,
Fear Porn. That sounds like a great clickbait title. So
Fear porn.
But no, seriously, dude, it's great to do this every week with you, and it's really interesting because by putting this down on YouTube and in iTunes and Stitcher and all that stuff, we're able to see the progress. I think my friends that listen to the show, I've gotten really awesome feedback from them, and and then my wife doesn't watch the show for weeks at a time, and then watches 4 in a row, and she's like, "Oh man, it's really getting good. I really enjoy the show and stuff." So, and it's a constant growth and expansion, which is all the stuff we've been talking about here today. And we both had to get over certain fears that we had in order to do this show.
Yeah,
right.
Although I will say, we're wrapping up an hour here. I will say I'm a little disappointed that we didn't talk about psychedelics and tripping out on plant medicines. We should do a whole show about just like the visions and like crazy stuff that we've seen on mushrooms or LSD or any of the big stuff.
I don't know if we could fit that into one show.
Well, I didn't say we could fit it into one show. I should we do a show about that, but
right.
But
we should maybe bring on a really cool special guest. Wink, wink.
Yeah, we'll do that. I really want to someday. I want to get into the idea of like what a vision is, over a hallucination, and why visions have such a power to like drastically change the course of your life. Because I've had some big ones and really just big crystal clear messages wrapped up in something extraordinary. I think that's cool because a lot of people talk about like visions or hallucinations or tripping out or whatever, but sometimes when the conditions are right, like you'll be carried to a space, and the way I've looked at it is like you'll see yourself as something, which this all dovetails into what we're talking about. You'll see yourself as something that you never thought you were capable of being.
Right.
You'll have a vision of yourself that's so far beyond what you thought was. So far beyond even your imagination for yourself, that when you have that, and in the context when it feels so real and it's so intimate in like the psychedelic space, then you realize like, okay, well, it is possible. Anything is possible, So we should talk about that. Maybe we'll do it next week. But that's all I got for today. Jeff, you wanna tell them all the good stuff to get us down the road here? All the good stuff is always available to all you wonderful, beautiful people that listen to our show and watch it. Of course, we're available on YouTube. Go to redesigningreality.com. Visit Dylan at wakingtimes.com. And you can hook up with me at journeytoinnerstage.com. Sweet. Thank you, Brother Jeff. Until next week, peace out, people. And thank you very much for tuning in. Out. Peace.
You've been listening to Redesigning Reality with Jeff Anthony and Dylan Charles.